So animal training, huh? Have to admit, when I saw this one on the list, I pictured, playing with puppies all day. But after going through everything you sent, seems like there's a lot more to it.
It's definitely more than just cuddles. You really have to understand how animals think, how they learn. It's like animal psychology in action.
Yeah, and not just like the family dog, right? I mean, we were talking about all
Mm.
kinds of training.
Right. A service dog, for example, has to be trained for very specific tasks to help their human partner, like fetching medication or even just providing emotional support. You have to really know your canine behavior for that.
Makes sense. And speaking of knowing your stuff, the materials you sent mentioned a bunch of skills, communication, patience. Those seem obvious. But it also mentioned physical fitness, even knowing about animal welfare laws.
Right. It's about the whole picture. I mean,
Yeah.
you're responsible for the animal's well-being, so you need to know the rules, like about their environment, their care, even the actual training methods you can and can't use.
Yeah, it's like being their legal representative or something.
Yeah.
Speaking of cool stuff, did you see that part about using wearable sensors on the animals now? Wild.
Oh, yeah. That technology is amazing. Imagine you can actually track things like a dog's stress level during training.
Right.
Helps you adjust your approach, to keep them comfortable.
It's like having a window into what they're thinking. So how does someone even get into this kind of work? Do you just, like, jump in and start working with lions or something?
No, not quite. You usually start at the bottom, assisting more experienced trainers.
Yeah.
A lot of cleaning, a lot of basic care. Think of it as paying your dues.
Right. Got to work your way up. But the material mentioned that senior trainers can end up, like, designing whole training programs, even doing research and stuff.
Exactly. You go from following someone else's plan to creating your own, solving really complex behavioral problems,
Yeah.
maybe even helping other trainers with what you've learned.
Okay, so it can be a real career path, but gotta ask. There's got to be some downsides, right? I mean, it can't be all sunshine and puppies.
It's definitely not always easy, depending on what animals you're working with. There can be risks. I mean, these are animals after all. So understanding those risks, knowing how to stay safe, that's a huge part of it.
Right. Safety first for everyone. On a more upbeat note, though, didn't those projections say that the need for animal trainers is actually growing?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for roles in like security and assistance, those are in high demand.
Which makes sense if you think about it. I mean, if you were, say, looking for someone to train your dogs for a really specific task, you'd want someone who knows that area inside and out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, if you were going to specialize in like one type of animal training, just curious, what would it be?
Hmm. That's a tough one. There are so many fascinating paths you could take. What about you? Anything that really stood out to you in all of this?
Honestly, the whole working dog thing really got to me. Like the ones that work with law enforcement or search and rescue, the stuff they do is just like next level. It really is remarkable, the bond they have, the communication. And the training for those dogs is intense. I mean, they're not just learning tricks, it's life or death stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. Speaking of training, one thing we haven't mentioned yet is this RoleCatcher thing. It's mentioned a bunch in the material. It's more than just a job site, right?
Yeah, it's like a whole platform geared towards people who are serious about getting into this field. They have tools for building your resume, prepping for interviews, even get this, using AI to give you feedback on your answers.
Oh, really? That's pretty wild. So we've covered a lot here. The skills, the commitment, even some of the not so fun parts. What would you say, like the most important thing for someone interested in this to keep in mind?
I think it boils down to this. To really make it in this field, it takes more than just loving animals. You need to understand them, respect them, always be learning. It's about having that passion, but also the knowledge to back it up.
And not being afraid to get your hands dirty.
Right. From the sounds of it, there's a lot of, well, not so glamorous stuff early on. Oh, absolutely. It's not all playing fetch in the park, but the rewards can be huge if you're willing to put in the work.
And those rewards can be pretty incredible, helping animals, strengthening that bond, and maybe even making a real difference. And it's not just about like the individual animal, right? It's about understanding a whole different species, how they communicate.
Absolutely. It's about bridging that gap, figuring out how to get through to them, build that trust.
And when it works,
Yeah.
it's amazing what they can do. All right, last question, and this is for anyone listening who's thinking about this kind of career. If you could work with any animal, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think I'd have to go with primates. They're just fascinating, so intelligent, such complex social structures. to really get inside their heads.
It'd be like learning a whole new way of thinking.
Exactly.
Well, on that note, I think we've covered a ton today.
Yeah.
Anyone listening who's interested in animal training, hopefully this gave you a better idea of what it's actually like.
Yeah, it's definitely a career that's full of surprises.
It's not just about loving animals. It's about dedicating yourself to really understanding them. And if you're willing to put in the time, the work, I mean, who knows what you could accomplish. So keep learning, keep that passion alive, and maybe we'll see you out there shaping the future of animal training. That's it for us. Until next time.